The Cubs got a box. 5 minutes later, the commander was completely surprised. Part 1. The deep space vessel Horizon's Edge moved slowly through the dark, empty space of the Calaris system. It had been out here for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of nothing. 3 weeks of boring patrols and endless reports. The crew was tired. They wanted to go home. Commander Lisa Novak stood on the bridge with her arms crossed. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and tired eyes. She had been in the fleet for 22 years. She had seen many things in her life. Good things and bad things. Mostly bad things. That was the nature of space. It was beautiful, but it was also dangerous and lonely. "Commander," said Lieutenant Danny Ortiz from his station. He was a young man with dark hair and a quick smile. But he was not smiling now. His face looked worried. "I am picking up a distress signal." Novak turned to look at him. "Where?" "About 2 hours from our current position. It is weak, very weak. Can you identify the ship?" Danny worked at his console for a moment. His fingers moved fast over the buttons. Then he stopped. His face changed. It became even more worried than before. "Ma'am, it is a Volrani shuttle." The bridge went quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing. They all looked at Danny, and then at the commander, the Volrani. That was a name that made humans nervous. The Volrani were a reptilian species. They had scales instead of skin. They had yellow eyes with black slits in the middle like snakes. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but they were taller and stronger. They did not smile. They did not laugh. They did not show any feelings at all. First contact between humans and Volrani had happened 10 years ago. It had not gone well. The Volrani thought humans were weak. They called them soft and undisciplined. They did not want to be friends. They did not want to trade. They just wanted to be left alone. Relations between the 2 species were cold. Not war, but not peace either. Just cold. Life signs? Novak asked. Danny checked again. 4 life signs. All weak. They are alive but not for long. Novak did not hesitate. Some commanders might have left the Volrani to die. The 2 species did not like each other after all. But Lisa Novak was not that kind of commander. She believed in doing the right thing even when it was hard. "Change course," she ordered. "Maximum speed. Get us there as fast as possible." "Ma'am," said her executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Pete Garza. He was a big man with a bald head and a thick mustache. "Are you sure about this? The Volrani might not want our help. They might see this as an insult." "They can insult me all they want after we save their lives," Novak said. "Move." The ship changed direction and began to accelerate. 2 hours felt like 2 days. Everyone on the bridge was tense. They did not know what they would find. They did not know if the Volrani would be grateful or angry. When they finally reached the shuttle, they saw how bad the damage was. The small ship was broken in many places. There were holes in the hull. There was no power. It was just floating in space like a dead thing. "How are they still alive?" Danny asked. "Emergency life support," said Dr. Amy Vance. She had come to the bridge when she heard about the rescue. She was a small woman with red hair and glasses. She was the ship's doctor, and she was very good at her job. "It only provides air and basic heat. It will not last much longer. We need to get them out now." Novak nodded. "Prepare the rescue team. I want them on that shuttle in 10 minutes. The rescue team consisted of 6 people. They wore spacesuits and carried medical equipment. They also carried weapons just in case. No one knew what condition the Volrani would be in. No one knew if they would be friendly or hostile. The team cut through the shuttle's airlock and entered. What they found inside surprised them all. "Commander," said Sergeant Mike Brady over the radio. His voice sounded strange, confused. "You need to hear this." Go ahead, Novak said. The survivors. They are not soldiers. They are not adults. Ma'am, they are children. 4 Velrani children. The bridge went silent again. Children. No one had expected that. How old? Novak asked. I do not know how Velrani ages work. But if I had to guess, I would say the oldest is maybe 12 in human use. The youngest is maybe 6. They are scared, ma'am. Really scared. And they are hurt. Novak closed her eyes for a moment. Children. Scared and hurt children. It did not matter what species they were. It did not matter that their people and her people did not get along. They were children. Bring them aboard, she ordered. Carefully, gently. Do not scare them more than they already are. Dr. Vance, prepare the medical bay. Already on my way, Amy said. She was running before she finished speaking. The rescue team brought the 4 children onto the horizon's edge. The crew members who saw them in the corridors stopped and stared. They had never seen Velrani in person before. Most humans had not. And they had certainly never seen Velrani children. The cubs, as the crew quickly started calling them, were small. Much smaller than adult Velrani. Their scales were softer and lighter in color. Their yellow eyes were big and round, not narrow and sharp like adult eyes. They looked less like dangerous predators and more like frightened babies. The oldest was a male. He held himself straight and tried to look brave, but his hands were shaking. The second oldest was a female. She held the 2 younger ones close to her, protecting them with her body. The 2 youngest were siblings, a boy and a girl. They clung to each other and would not let go. Dr. Vance worked on them for hours. She had to guess about many things because human medicine and Velrani medicine were not the same. But she was smart and she was careful. By morning, all 4 children were stable. Commander Novak came to the medical bay to see them. The cubs were sleeping on beds that were too big for them. They looked so small, so helpless. What happened to them? Novak asked quietly. The linguistic software finally figured out their dialect, Amy said. They are orphans. From a colony world called Velcara 7, pirates attacked the colony, killed most of the adults. These 4 escaped on a shuttle with some kind of escort, a guardian or soldier. But the escort died during the journey, probably from injuries during the attack. So they have been alone on that dying shuttle for how long? At least 4 days. Maybe 5. Novak felt something twist in her chest. 4 children. Alone in space for 5 days. Watching their last protector die. Not knowing if anyone would come to save them. They must have been so scared, she whispered. They still are, Amy said. The oldest one, his name is Torek. He keeps asking what will happen to them. He keeps asking if we are going to hurt them. Hurt them? Why would he think that? Amy looked at her with sad eyes. Because that is what they have been taught. Velrani children are taught that humans are dangerous. That we cannot be trusted. That we are the enemy. Novak looked at the sleeping children again. The youngest one, a little female named Kira, was sucking on her thumb. It was such a human gesture. Such a childlike gesture. It made her heart ache. They stay with us, Novak said firmly. Until we can find somewhere safe for them. No one is sending them back into space alone. No one is putting them in danger. They stay with us. The Velrani government might not like that, Amy warned. I do not care what the Velrani government likes. These are children. And on my ship, we protect children. All children, no matter where they come from. She turned and walked out of the medical bay. Her decision was made. She did not know it yet, but that decision would change everything. Not just for her ship. Not just for the children. But for the entire galaxy. The cubs had arrived. And nothing would ever be the same. The cubs got a box. 5 minutes later, the commander was completely surprised. Part 2. The first day was hard. The cubs did not trust anyone. They stayed together in a tight group, watching every human with suspicious yellow eyes. When crew members tried to bring them food, they would not eat until the humans left the room. When someone tried to talk to them, they would not answer. The oldest cub, Tarek, appointed himself as the leader. He stood in front of the others like a tiny guard. He was only the size of a human 12-year-old, but he acted like a soldier. His back was straight. His chin was high. His eyes never stopped moving, always looking for danger. He's trying to protect them, Dr. Annie Vance told Commander Novak. In Velrani culture, the oldest is responsible for the younger ones. It is a heavy burden for such a young child. He should not have to carry that burden, Novak said. He's just a boy. Try telling him that. On the second day, things got a little better. The cubs started eating when the humans were in the room. They started responding to simple questions with short answers. Yes, no, thank you. Please. The crew learned their names. Torek was the oldest male. Sela was the second oldest female. Vorn and Kira were the two youngest, brother and sister. Their parents had died in the pirate attack. So had their aunts and uncles and grandparents. They had no one left. Ensign Charlie Dunn was assigned to help take care of them. He was a young engineer, barely 23 years old. He had grown up with 4 younger siblings, so he knew how to handle children. At least, he thought he did. Velrani children are different, he told his friends in the mess hall. They do not play. They do not joke. They do not even smile. It is like talking to tiny old people. But Charlie did not give up. He sat with the cubs every day. He told them stories about Earth. He showed them pictures of his family. He taught them new words in English. Slowly, very slowly, they started to trust him. Kira was the first to warm up. She was the youngest at about 6 human years. She still had the innocent curiosity that older Velrani children lost. One day, she reached out and touched Charlie's hair. Humans had hair. Velrani did not. This was very strange to her. Soft, she said in her small voice. Why soft? That is just how humans are, Charlie said with a smile. We have soft hair on our heads. Velrani have scales. I know. Your scales are very pretty. Kira tilted her head. No one had ever called her scales pretty before. On her world, scales were just scales. They were not pretty or ugly. They just were pretty. She repeated. Yes, they shine in the light. Like little jewels. Kira looked down at her arm. She looked at her small green scales. Then she looked back at Charlie. And for the first time since coming aboard the ship, she smiled. It was a tiny smile. Just a small lift of her lips. But to Charlie, it felt like a victory. After that, Kira followed Charlie everywhere. She walked behind him in the corridors. She sat next to him in the mess hall. She waited outside his door in the morning. The other crew members thought it was funny. Charlie thought it was both wonderful and exhausting. She's like a little shadow, he complained to Dr. Vance. A little scaly shadow. She has imprinted on you, Amy explained. Young Velrani form strong attachments to their caregivers. You are her caregiver now. But I'm not qualified for this. I fix engines. I do not raise alien children. Well, you better learn fast. That little girl needs you. Charlie looked at Kira. She was sitting in the corner of the medical bay, watching him with her big yellow eyes. When she saw him looking, she waved. A tiny wave with her tiny hand. Charlie sighed and waved back. Maybe being a caregiver would not be so bad. The other cubs were slower to open up. Sala was protective of her younger siblings, Vorn and Kira. She watched the humans like a hawk, always ready to grab her siblings and run if danger appeared. She rarely spoke, and when she did, her words were short and sharp. Vorn was quiet and thoughtful. He liked to watch things. He watched the humans work. He watched the screens on the walls. He watched the stars through the windows. He was taking everything in, learning, studying. And then there was Tarek, the oldest, the leader, the little soldier who never let his guard down. Commander Novak tried to talk to him several times. Each time, he answered her questions politely but coldly. "Yes, Commander." "No, Commander." "Thank you, Commander." He never said more than he had to. He never showed any emotion at all. "He reminds me of myself," Novak told Pete Garza one evening. "When I was young and scared and trying to be brave." "He is a child," Garza said. "He should not have to be brave." "No, he should not. But life does not always give us what we should have." On the third day, something changed. The Cubs had been given quarters near the crew mess hall. It was a small room with 4 beds, a bathroom, and a window that looked out at the stars. The crew had tried to make it comfortable. They had brought extra blankets and pillows. They had put pictures on the walls. They had even found some plants from the ship's garden, but the room still felt empty. It felt cold. It did not feel like home. Crewman Beth Rawlings noticed this. She was an older woman who had worked on the ship for 15 years. She had 3 grandchildren back on Earth. She missed them every day. And when she looked at the Cubs, she saw her grandchildren in them. "They need something," she told Charlie. "Something to make them feel safe. Something familiar. But nothing here is familiar to them. They are millions of miles from home. Then we make new familiar. We give them something to hold on to." Beth started bringing things to the Cubs' room. Small things. A soft blanket with stars on it. A picture book with images of animals from many worlds. A music player with gentle songs. The Cubs accepted these gifts with confusion. On their world, gifts were rare. Objects were tools, not comforts. But Kira loved the soft blanket. She wrapped herself in it every night. And Vorn spent hours looking at the picture book, asking Charlie to tell him about each animal. The Vorny's siblings started to change. Not in big ways. In small ways. They smiled more often. They talked more easily. They stopped watching the humans with fear in their eyes. Tarek noticed these changes. He watched his younger companions become comfortable with the humans. He watched them laugh at Charlie's jokes. He watched them eat human food without suspicion. He watched them sleep peacefully without nightmares. Part of him was glad. The others deserved to feel safe. They deserved to be happy. They were just children, but another part of him was worried. They were forgetting that humans were different. Forgetting that they could not stay here forever. Forgetting that the galaxy was a dangerous place. "Do not get too close to them," he told Sella one night after the younger ones were asleep. "They are not our people. They are kind to us," Sella said. "Kindness can be a trick. Do you really believe that?" Tarek did not answer. He was not sure what he believed anymore. Everything he had been taught said that humans were bad. But everything he had seen said that humans were good. How could both things be true? He lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling. The stars moved slowly past the window. Somewhere out there was his home world. Somewhere out there was everything he had lost. He was only 12 years old. But he felt very old. Very tired. He had been taking care of the others for so long. He had been strong for so long. Sometimes he wished he could stop being strong. Sometimes he wished someone would take care of him. But that was a childish wish. And Tarek could not afford to be a child. Not anymore. The 4th day came. And with it came something that none of them expected. Something that would change everything. Beth Rawlings was cleaning out an old storage compartment near the cargo bay. It was full of forgotten things that had been on the ship for years. Old equipment, broken tools, boxes that no one had opened in a long time. In the back of the compartment, she found a large plastic crate covered in dust. The label on the side said, "Colony Resupply Mission, Personal Items." Beth remembered this mission. It had been years ago. The supply ship had arrived too late. The colony had already been abandoned. The supplies had never been delivered. She opened the crate to see what was inside. Most of it was boring. Seeds for plants, basic tools, cooking supplies. But at the very bottom, wrapped in plastic, was a smaller box. She pulled it out and read the label. Children's Educational and Recreational Supplies. Beth smiled. She had found exactly what the cubs needed. The cubs got a box. 5 minutes later, the commander was completely surprised. Part 3. Beth. Rawlings carried the box through the corridors of the ship. Crew members looked at her curiously as she passed. The box was dusty and old. It looked like something that had been forgotten for a very long time. "What is that?" asked Danny Ortiz when she passed the bridge. "A surprise," Beth said with a smile. "For the cubs." She found the children in the recreation room. This had become their favorite place on the ship. It had big windows that showed the stars. It had comfortable chairs and soft carpets. It was warm and quiet and safe. Tarek was sitting in a corner, watching his companions. Sal was teaching Vorn how to play checkers. They had learned this game from Charlie, and they loved it. Kira was sitting on the floor, wrapped in her star blanket, looking at her picture book. "Hello, little ones," Beth said as she entered. "I have something for you." All 4 cubs looked up. They had learned to trust Beth. She was always kind. She always brought good things. Food and blankets and books and smiles. "What is it?" Vorn asked. He was always curious, always wanting to learn new things. Beth set the box on the floor in the middle of the room. "I found this in storage. It was supposed to go to a human colony, but it never got there. I thought you might like what is inside." The cubs gathered around the box. Even Torek came closer, though he tried to look like he was not interested. Beth stepped back and let them explore on their own. Kira was the first to reach out. Her small hands touched the lid of the box. She looked at Beth with a question in her eyes. Beth nodded. "Go ahead." Kira lifted the lid. Inside were many things. Colorful things. Strange things. Things the cubs had never seen before. There were blocks. Wooden blocks painted in bright colors. Red and blue and yellow and green. There were magnetic tiles that clicked together. There were bouncy balls in different sizes. There were plastic figures shaped like animals. There were gears and wheels that could be connected to make machines. And at the very bottom, tucked in the corner, was a soft stuffed bear with button eyes. The cubs stared at these objects with wide eyes. They did not understand what they were looking at. "What are these things?" Sela asked. "Toys," Beth said. "Human children play with them." "Play?" Torek said the word like it was foreign to him, like he had never heard it before. "Yes, play. Just for fun. Just to be happy." The cubs looked at each other. On their world, there was no play. Valorani children went to school. They learned to read and write and count. They learned history and science and military tactics. They learned to fight and to survive. But they did not play. Play was considered a waste of time. Play was for weak species who did not understand the dangers of the universe. Vorn was the first to reach into the box. He pulled out a red bouncy ball. He turned it over in his hands, examining it carefully. It was smooth and round and weighed almost nothing. "What does it do?" he asked. "Drop it and see." Vorn dropped the ball. It hit the floor and bounced back up. He caught it with surprise on his face. He dropped it again. It bounced again. Higher this time. It comes back, he said. His voice was full of wonder. It always comes back. He dropped it a third time. A fourth time. A fifth time. Each time the ball bounced back to him. Each time he caught it with growing excitement. Sela watched her brother for a moment. Then she reached into the box and pulled out a handful of magnetic tiles. They clicked together in her hands, making a satisfying sound. She pulled them apart and clicked them together again. Then she started building. She did not know what she was building. She had no plan. She just put the tiles together in whatever way felt right. A tower grew under her hands. Then a wall. Then a shape that looked almost like a house. "Look," she said to the others. "I made something." Kira crawled over to look at her sister's creation. Then she looked back at the box. She reached in and pulled out the stuffed bear. It was soft and brown with a friendly face. Its button eyes looked at her with kindness. Kira had never held anything like this before. Vaughnie did not have soft things. They had tools and weapons and machines. But not this. Not something that existed only to be held. She hugged the bear to her chest. It felt warm. It felt safe. It felt like something she had been missing her whole life without knowing it. "I like this," she whispered. "I like this very much." Torek stood apart from the others. He watched them play with these strange human objects. Part of him wanted to join them. Part of him wanted to grab a toy and see what it did. But another part of him held back. He was the oldest. He was the leader. He could not act like a child. But then Vorm bounced the ball to him. It rolled across the floor and stopped at his feet. Torek looked down at it. Red and round and simple. "Try it," Vorn said. "It is fun." Fun. Another foreign word. Another human concept that Vaughnie were taught to reject. Tarek picked up the ball. It was lighter than he expected. He dropped it. It bounced back. He dropped it again. It bounced again. He did not smile. He did not laugh. But something shifted inside him. Something small and quiet. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. He noticed a plastic figure near his foot. He bent down and picked it up. It was shaped like a strange creature with a long neck and a small head. He had never seen an animal like this before. "That is a dinosaur," said Beth. She had been watching from the doorway, not wanting to interrupt. "It is an animal that lived on Earth millions of years ago." "They are all gone now." "Gone?" Torek asked. "Yes, they died a long time ago. But human children still love them. They imagine what it would be like if dinosaurs were still alive." Torek looked at the plastic dinosaur. It was not real. It served no purpose. It could not teach him anything useful. It could not help him survive. But there was something about it. Something that made him want to keep holding it. "Imagine," he repeated softly. Yes, to imagine means to think about things that are not real. Things that could be. Things that might be. It is how humans create new ideas. How we dream. Torek had never been taught to imagine. Vaughnie education focused on facts. On what was real. On what was proven. Imagination was considered dangerous. It led to false hopes. It led to weakness. But holding this small plastic creature, Tarek wondered if maybe his teachers had been wrong. Maybe imagination was not weakness. Maybe it was strength. Ensign Charlie Dunn came into the recreation room a few minutes later. He stopped in the doorway, his mouth open in surprise. The Cubs were playing. Actually playing. Vorn was bouncing 3 balls at once, trying to catch them all. He kept missing and laughing every time one got away. Sela had built an elaborate structure out of magnetic tiles. It was tall and complex and looked like nothing real, but also like everything real at the same time. Kira was having a conversation with her stuffed bear, telling it about her favorite foods and her brother's silly jokes. And Torek, serious, stern, soldier Torek. He was sitting on the floor with plastic dinosaurs lined up in front of him. He was making them walk across the carpet. He was making them fight imaginary battles. He was playing. Charlie felt his eyes get wet. He blinked quickly, not wanting the cubs to see him cry. But he could not help it. This was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He pulled out his personal recording device and turned it on. He recorded everything. The bouncing balls, the magnetic towers, the stuffed bear, the dinosaurs, the laughter, the smiles, the joy. For the first time since the cubs had arrived, they looked like children. Real children. Happy children. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 30. The cubs did not stop playing. They did not get bored. They did not remember that play was supposed to be wrong. They just played. And in those 30 minutes, something changed. Not just in the cubs. In the whole ship. Crew members gathered at the door to watch. They smiled. They laughed. Some of them cried like Charlie. These were Volani children. The Volani who called humans soft and weak. The Volani who said they had no use for emotions. The Volani who claimed their species was superior because they did not waste time on useless things. But here were 4 of their young, laughing over bouncy balls and stuffed bears. Charlie sent the recording to Commander Novak. She needed to see this. Everyone needed to see this. This was proof that the Volani were not so different from humans after all. This was proof that all children, no matter what species, needed the same things: safety, love, joy, play. This was proof that the galaxy was not as divided as everyone thought. The cubs kept playing, unaware of what they had just started. They did not know that their games would be seen by millions. They did not know that their laughter would change history. They just knew that they were happy. And for now, that was enough. The cubs got a box. 5 minutes later, the commander was completely surprised. For Commander Lisa Novak was in her ready room when the message arrived. She was doing paperwork, the boring part of her job that never seemed to end. Reports and forms and requests and approvals. Sometimes she wondered if she spent more time fighting bureaucracy than fighting actual enemies. Her screen blinked. A new message from Ensign Charlie Dunn. She opened it. There was a video attached. The subject line said only, "You need to see this." Novak played the video. At first, she did not understand what she was looking at. The recreation room. The cubs. Some kind of box. Then she saw the toys. She saw Vorm bouncing the red ball, his face full of wonder. She saw Sella building towers, her hands moving with joy instead of caution. She saw Kira hugging the stuffed bear like it was the most precious thing in the universe. And she saw Torek, who had been so cold and distant. Torek, who had tried so hard to be strong. Torek, who had never smiled once since coming aboard. He was sitting on the floor, playing with toy dinosaurs, and there was something in his eyes that had not been there before. Peace. He looked at peace. Novak watched the video 3 times. She did not move. She did not speak. She just watched. She had been in the fleet for 22 years. She had seen wars and peace treaties. She had seen first contacts and final battles. She had watched people live and die among the stars. Very little surprised her anymore, but this surprised her. The Volani were supposed to be cold. Every report, every study, every interaction had confirmed this. They did not feel emotions like humans did. They did not need joy or play or softness. That was what everyone believed. That was what the Volani themselves claimed. But here were 4 Volani children, laughing over human toys. Novak stood up. She walked out of her ready room and headed for the recreation room. She needed to see this for herself. When she arrived, the cubs were still playing. They had not noticed time passing. They were lost in their games, completely absorbed in the simple joy of play. Novak stood in the doorway and watched. Crew members had gathered nearby, watching through the windows, speaking in soft voices so they would not disturb the children. "It has been almost an hour," Charlie said quietly, coming to stand next to her. "They have not stopped. Have they eaten?" Beth brought them snacks. They ate while playing. They did not want to stop. Novak nodded slowly. She watched Torek make two dinosaurs fight each other. He was making sounds with his mouth, growls and roars and crashes. She had never heard a Velrani make such sounds before. She walked into the room. The cubs noticed her and tensed for a moment. Even now, they still saw her as an authority figure. Someone to be respected. Someone to be feared, maybe. "Do not stop," she said gently. "I just want to watch." Kira relaxed first. She went back to talking to her stuffed bear, telling it about the nice humans on the ship. Vorm went back to his balls. Sella went back to her building dot, but Torek stopped. He put down his dinosaurs and looked at the commander. His yellow eyes were serious, but not cold. Something had changed in them. "Commander," he said, "I have a question. Ask these objects. These toys. They have no function. They do not teach anything useful. They do not help anyone survive. Why do they exist?" Novak thought about this. She had never really considered why toys existed. They just did. Humans had always had toys. As far back as history could remember, human children had played with dolls and balls and blocks. She knelt down so she was at Tarek's level. She picked up one of the plastic dinosaurs and looked at it. "Sometimes," she said slowly, "the most useful thing you can do is something useless." Torek tilted his head. "I do not understand. Let me try to explain. When you work all the time, you get tired. Your mind gets tired. Your heart gets tired. You start to forget why you are working in the first place. But when you play, when you do something just for fun, it reminds you that life is not only about work. Life is also about joy. And joy makes you stronger." "Joy makes you stronger?" "Yes. When you are happy, you have more energy. You think better. You make better choices. You care more about others. Joy is not a weakness, Torek. Joy is a strength." Torek looked at the dinosaur in her hand. He looked at his siblings, still playing and laughing. He looked at the human crew members, watching with smiles on their faces. "My teacher said that play is a waste of time," he said quietly. "They said that humans are weak because they play. What do you think?" Torek was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took the dinosaur from her hand. "I think my teachers were wrong." Novak smiled. It was a real smile, not the professional smile she wore on the bridge. A genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I think so too." She stayed in the recreation room for another hour. She helped Sella build a magnetic castle. She bounced balls with Vorn. She listened while Kira introduced her to her stuffed bear, whose name was now Soft Friend. And she sat with Torek and learned the names of all the different dinosaurs. By the time she left, something had shifted in her heart. These cubs were not just refugees anymore. They were not just a diplomatic problem. They were children. Her children, at least for now. She returned to her ready room and found Lieutenant Commander Pete Garza waiting for her. His face was serious. That was never a good sign. "We received a response from Volreni High Command," he said. Novak sat down in her chair. "And? They want the cubs back. Immediately. They are sending a cruiser to meet us. It will arrive in 2 days." Novak had expected this. The Velrani would not want their children on a human ship. They would want to control the situation. They would want to make sure no one found out that their young could laugh and play just like human children. What else? She asked. She could tell there was more. They are demanding we hand over all recordings and documentation related to the Cubs' time aboard. Everything. They do not want any evidence of this reaching the galactic community. Now Novak understood. The Verani government was scared. If people found out that Verani children were just like human children, it would destroy their whole mythology. The idea that Verani were emotionally superior, that they did not need soft things like play and joy. That idea kept their society together. That idea kept their people obedient. But it was a lie. And now there was proof. That is very unfortunate, Novak said slowly. Garza frowned. Ma'am? It is unfortunate that Ensign Dunn's recording was already uploaded to the ship's morale archive. Standard procedure for positive crew events. And the archive automatically syncs with Fleet Command every 12 hours. Garza's eyes widened. He understood what she was saying. That would mean the recording has already been distributed across the entire human fleet network. Yes, it would mean that. Very unfortunate. An accident, really. No one could have predicted it. A slow smile spread across Garza's face. No one at all. And of course, once something is on the fleet network, it tends to spread. Other ships copy it. Stations save it. It ends up everywhere. Impossible to contain. Completely impossible. Novak leaned back in her chair. Inform the Volri that we will cooperate with their requests. We will hand over whatever documentation we still have. But we cannot control what has already been distributed. Understood, Commander. And Garza? Make sure the crew knows that the Cubs need extra attention these next 2 days. They should have the best time possible before they have to leave. Yes, ma'am. Garza left. Novak turned to look out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a Velrani cruiser was coming to take the Cubs away. Somewhere out there, the video of those children playing was spreading across the galaxy. She had just started something. She did not know what would happen. She did not know if it would be good or bad. But she knew it was right that some truths needed to be told. Some lies needed to be broken. And sometimes, the most powerful weapon in the universe was a bouncy ball and a stuffed bear. Novak smiled and turned back to her paperwork. There was still work to do. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like the work mattered. The Cubs had shown her something important. They had reminded her why humans did what they did. Why they explored the stars. Why they helped strangers. Why they kept hoping even when hope seemed foolish. Because joy was worth fighting for. For everyone. In every corner of the galaxy. The Cubs got a box. 5 minutes later, the commander was completely surprised. Part 5. The video spread faster than anyone expected. Within 1 day, it had reached every human ship and station. Within 1 week, it had been seen by millions of people across human space. Within 1 month, it had been translated into 47 different alien languages and shared across the entire galactic network. The image of 4 Valrani children playing with human toys became the most watched video in the history of interstellar communication. People could not stop talking about it. News networks discussed it for hours. Scientists analyzed it. Philosophers debated what it meant. Religious leaders called it a sign of universal truth. Everyone had an opinion, but the most important reactions came from the Varani themselves. The government was furious. They denied the video was real at first. Then they said it was fake, created by humans to embarrass their species. Then they said the children had been drugged or manipulated. They changed their story again and again, trying to explain away what everyone could see with their own eyes. They issued formal protests to the human government. They threatened to end trade agreements. They recalled their ambassador from Earth. They said there would be consequences, but something else was happening too. Something the government could not control. On Volrani colony worlds, parents started asking questions. Why were their children not allowed to play? Why was joy considered weakness? Why were they taught that emotions were dangerous? They had always accepted these rules without thinking. But now they wondered if maybe, just maybe, the rules were wrong. Underground groups began to form. Secret meetings where Volrani talked about the video. Secret networks where they shared forbidden ideas. Secret workshops where adults made toys for the first time in their lives. Human traders started bringing toys to Volrani border worlds. Not openly. That would be too dangerous. But hidden in cargo containers and shipping crates. Bouncy balls and stuffed animals and building blocks. They sold them in secret markets to Volrani who wanted them for their children. The Volrani government tried to stop this. They searched ships. They arrested traders. They punished anyone caught with human toys. But they could not stop the spread. It was like trying to stop water with their hands. The more they squeezed, the more slipped through. The cubs themselves were returned to Volrani space. The cruiser came and took them away, just as the government had demanded. Commander Novak had to let them go. She had no legal right to keep them. They were Volrani citizens, and she was just a human captain. But before they left, Torek came to see her one last time. He walked into her ready room with his back straight and his head high. He looked like a little soldier again. But there was something different about him now. A softness around his eyes that had not been there before. In his hands, he carried the stuffed bear that Kira had loved so much. "We cannot take this with us," he said. "They will take it away. They will destroy it." He held the bear out to Novak. She took it gently, holding it like it was made of glass. "I wanted you to have it," Torek said. "So you will remember us." "I can never forget you," Novak said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "Any of you." Torek nodded. He turned to leave. But at the door, he stopped. "Commander, my people call humans soft. They mean it as an insult. I know." Torek looked back at her. "But I have been thinking about this. Soft things can bend without breaking. Hard things can only shatter. Maybe soft is not so bad." Novak felt tears in her eyes. She blinked them back. "Maybe not. Thank you. For everything. For saving us. For showing us that there is more to life than what we were taught. Thank you, Torek, for reminding me why kindness matters." The young Volrani walked out the door. A few hours later, the cubs were on the cruiser, heading back to their own space. Novak watched the ship disappear into the distance. She held the stuffed bear close to her chest. She did not know if she would ever see them again. She did not know what would happen to them when they returned home. She could only hope that they would be safe, that they would remember what they had learned, that they would carry the joy with them wherever they went. 2 years passed. The video continued to spread. The underground movements continued to grow. The Volrani government became more desperate and more harsh. They cracked down harder on anyone who showed human influences. They arrested thousands. They sent people to prison camps. They tried everything they could to stop the change that was coming, but they could not stop it. Because you cannot unring a bell. You cannot make people forget what they have seen. You cannot put truth back in a box once it has been let out. The revolution, when it came, was not violent. It was not a war with weapons and battles. It was a war with ideas, with joy, with bouncy balls and stuffed bears. Parents refused to send their children to military schools. Workers refused to work overtime without rest. Young people refused to hide their emotions anymore. Slowly, the whole structure of Volrani society started to shake. The government fell. Not with an explosion, but with a sigh. The old leaders were removed. New leaders, younger leaders, leaders who had grown up watching the video and dreaming of something better, took their place. They called it the Soft Rebellion. And the first thing they did was establish a cultural exchange program with Earth. The first shipment to arrive on Velran Prime contained 300,000 toys. There was a ceremony to celebrate. Leaders from both species gave speeches. Crowds gathered in the streets. Music played. Children, both human and Velrani, played together for the first time in history. In the capital city, a new museum opened. It was dedicated to the Soft Rebellion and the 4 cubs who had started it all. The centerpiece of the museum was a small glass case. Inside were 2 items: a plastic dinosaur and a note written in trade common that said, "A gift from the children of the horizon's edge. May your young ones always know joy." Commander Lisa Novak was invited to the opening ceremony. She had been promoted to admiral by then, but she still thought of herself as that captain who had rescued 4 scared children from a dying shuttle. She came to the museum with 1 item in her bag, the stuffed bear that Torek had given her. She had kept it all these years. She had looked at it every day. It reminded her of what was possible when people chose kindness over fear. She donated the bear to the museum. The curators placed it in the glass case next to the dinosaur. It sat there, soft and brown and friendly, looking out at all the visitors who came to see it. Reporters asked Novak many questions that day. They wanted to know about her decision to save the cubs. They wanted to know about the video. They wanted to know what she thought about the revolution. But one question stuck with her more than any other. "Admiral," a young Velrani journalist asked, "what do you think is humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy?" Novak thought about this for a long moment. She thought about technology and science and exploration. She thought about treaties and trade and diplomacy. She thought about all the big, important things that humans had done in their history. But then she thought about a box of toys. She thought about a bouncy ball. She thought about a stuffed bear. "We taught them how to play," she said. "That is our greatest contribution. We showed the galaxy that joy matters. That softness is strength. That sometimes the most important things in the universe are the things that serve no purpose except to make us happy." The journalist nodded slowly. Around them, children were laughing and playing. Human children and Velrani children together. Their scales and their skin mixing. Their voices joining in games that had no point, except fun. Novak smiled and watched them play. This was what she had fought for. This was what the cubs had started. A galaxy where children could be children. Where joy was not considered weakness. Where soft things were treasured. Somewhere out there, Tarek was grown now. A young adult. He had become one of the leaders of the Soft Rebellion. Novak had received messages from him over the years. He always ended them the same way. Remember that soft things bend without breaking. She remembered. She would always remember. The museum stayed open late that night. People from many worlds came to see the exhibits. They came to learn about the revolution. They came to understand how everything had changed. And they came to see the stuffed bear in the glass case. The bear with button eyes and soft brown fur. The bear that had been hugged by a scared little girl on a human ship, far from home. A small sign next to the case read, "Sometimes the greatest changes begin with the smallest acts of kindness." This bear changed the galaxy. And it had. A simple stuffed toy. A box of forgotten supplies. 4 scared children. 1 brave commander. That was all it took to prove that the galaxy was not so divided after all. That every species, no matter how different, shared the same basic needs. The need to feel safe. The need to feel loved. The need to play. The end.